Coming up on the February 11th edition of Carolina Week. 3 area college students, all Muslim, gunned down in the prime of life. Their families shocked beyond belief.
2 of them married just recently. The wife's younger sister also among the victims.
Muslims and non-Muslims worldwide expressing outrage about the senseless killings, some labeling the incident as a hate crime. Carolina Week starts right now.
From the UNC School of Journalism and Mass Communication, covering Carolina in HD, this is Carolina Week.
3 people dead. The man accused of the crime in jail without bond. Good evening, I'm Jacqueline Lane.
And I'm Susanna Black. The shooter struck last evening just after 5 in a neighborhood near the Friday Center. We have team coverage tonight, all the angles covered. We start with the latest. The man charged in this case had his first appearance in court today. Elizabeth Tu is standing by live at the scene of the crime with that part of the story.
Susanna, the man accused in this case lived in this apartment complex, lived near the victims. His name is Craig Stephen Hicks, a self-professed atheist and critic of religion, including Islam, also the owner of a .38 caliber pistol. The father of 2 of the victims said Hicks had threatened his now dead daughters. Craig Stephen Hicks was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder after turning himself in to Chapel Hill PD overnight. The 46-year-old made a court appearance this morning saying he understood the charges. Authorities say their preliminary investigation indicates the crime was motivated by an ongoing neighbor dispute about parking. District Attorney Roger Eccles wouldn't comment on the motive.
I can't answer what the motive was, what evidence there is of the motive. What I can say is those are things that continue to be under investigation.
Jaleesa Jones says this is more than just a parking dispute.
Chapel Hill PD has a tendency to sanitize things when hate crimes like this happen, try to sweep it under the rug. We saw that happen, with Faith. And I really feel that they are so committed to protecting this image of Chapel Hill as a safe utopian space for everyone that they'll deny a blatant act of terrorism.
It's too early to know the truth behind the crimes, although a Facebook page in Hicks' name describes him as a supporter of Atheist for Equality and blasted radical Christians and radical Muslims. Quote, "People say nothing can solve the Middle East problem. Not mediation, not arms, not financial aid. I say there is something. Atheism." The Facebook page also pictures a .38mm revolver. Now, Susanna, police are not saying what type of weapon the shooter used. Hicks was moved to Central Prison earlier today, and police are continuing their investigation into the motive.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Now, you might be wondering why the Durham DA's office is handling the prosecution. The apartment complex is near the county line. Technically, it's in Chapel Hill's police jurisdiction, but it's in the Durham Judicial District. So how did all of this go down, and who are the victims? Jacqueline Matter was one of the first on the scene last night. She's back there live right now.
Yeah, Susanna, it was a tragic scene here last night. 2 of the dead are from UNC, 1 from NC State. Police say all 3 victims were shot in the head, shot execution style, at the couple's home.
Orange County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi there. I'm walking through the Finley Forest apartment complex in Chapel Hill, and I just heard gunshots. I don't know what building it came from, but I heard kids screaming.
Okay, how many shots did you hear?
Multiple. I mean, at least between 5 and 10, I would say.
Shortly after that call around 5, police responded. Gunshots on Summerwalk Circle. That's near the Friday Center. Police identified the victims as UNC dental student Dia Barakat, who was 23 years old, his wife Yusur Mohammed, 21, and her sister Razin Mohammed Abu Salah, who was just 19. The scene chaotic. The family plead with law enforcement on the scene, pleading to know about their loved ones. Ultimately, the worst of news. 3 dead. Keep in mind, these people, the victims and the accused, all lived here in this apartment complex. And from what we know right now, it might have started over a simple parking dispute and escalated from there. Back to you, Susanna.
Whether it was parking or something else, we just don't know right now. But what we do know is who the victims were. Ben Smart joins us live with that part of the story.
Susanna, a family was literally destroyed at this apartment complex here last night. A husband, a wife, a sister, but just who were they? I spent the day finding out. 3 local students, police say, shot dead in their apartment complex. Dia Barakat, Yusur Abu Salah, and Razan Mahomed Abu Salah. Barakat was a second-year UNC dental student. He was raising money for a trip to Turkey to help Syrian refugees with dental care.
My name is Dia Barakat. I'm a dental student at UNC, and I need your help. Have you ever felt helpless about the situation in Syria and felt like you can't do anything about it? Well, this is your opportunity to help.
And he was truly a bright light.
His professor, Dr. Donald Tyndall, remembers Barakat's loving spirit.
Of course, bright, conscientious, hardworking, but he had a great compassion in his heart and a great love for people.
A little more than a month ago, Barakat married his wife, Yusur Abu Salah, who was also shot dead. Abu Salah was planning to begin her dental studies at UNC in the fall. The two were described as lovebirds by a family member. Razan Mahomed Abu Salah, the sister of Barakat, was the third shooting victim. She was a student at North Carolina State University, where she studied architecture and environmental design. Community gathered at the UNC School of Dentistry earlier today to share stories and mourn the loss of the 3 victims. Online, an outpouring of love and support. Their Facebook pages are filled with photos of the family laughing and supporting each other.
Whatever he would have done it with all his heart and mind, and he would have done a great job with it. Mourn for those who knew him, but also mourn for those who never had the chance. And I think that pretty much sums it up.
Susanna, there are a variety of vigils and services associated with those deaths last night. Check our university email for details.
Ben Smart, live in Chapel Hill. Thank you.
The Chapel Hill shooting has been one of the top trending items on Twitter all afternoon. Among the posts, at Shafi Q Yunus says, if the killer is Muslim, it's terrorism. But if the victim is Muslim, it's not worth a news story. And at Snow White says, the fact that I live 30 minutes away from the Chapel Hill shooting and didn't hear about it speaks volumes about what the media deems newsworthy. And at Mona Kwan says, don't try and say that this was not a hate crime filled with Islamophobia, because it was.
Joining us now in our satellite studio to try to help us grasp the magnitude of the shootings is Professor Julianne Hammer from the Department of Religious Studies at UNC. She specializes in Islamic studies. Professor Hammer, thank you so much for being with us.
I can't hear her.
It seems like we're having some technical difficulties. Professor Hammer, can you hear me? Okay, thank you, Professor Hammer. Sorry about that. Stay tuned. Okay, all right, Professor Hammer, we've got you back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. Three students shot in the head, execution style. Does this sound like a hate crime to you?
It definitely does. And I know that there's been some debate about whether it was related to parking disputes in that particular neighborhood. I do think that both the format of it, but also the very setup, point to a hate crime, and it's very, very difficult for me to believe that it was anything other than that.
Professor Hammer, this is Jacqueline Lee. There have been a lot of anti-Muslim sentiments rising around the country. First there's ISIS, now there's the death of Kayla Mueller. Do you think that Islamophobia is to blame for this tragedy that took place last night?
Well, I could be cautious and say we don't know enough about it yet. I do think that Islamophobia, which is a topic that I've studied for a long time, as a sentiment that takes hold in society and that affects many more people than those who are openly anti-Muslim, has very likely something to do with that. I mean, the 3 people were identifiable as Muslim. Their father has reported that they had encounters with the murderer beforehand. the women wore hijab, and so I find it very difficult to believe that it doesn't have anything to do with that.
Professor, is there anything that you would like to add?
I've been thinking hard about what that could be. I walked into class earlier today crying and told my students how heartbroken I am, how hard and how difficult it is to walk on campus and realize that something this terrible can happen in our community. It could happen in any other community. And I want to share my condolences with the Muslim community here, with the worldwide Muslim community. And I want to also say that I truly hope that this is an opportunity to come together as a human community rather than making this about Muslims being people who are different from other people in this country and elsewhere.
Okay, Professor Hammer, thanks for being with us. 3 students, not so different from any of us, all gone. A grim reminder of how fragile life is.
Carolina Week will be right back. The UNC School of Dentistry did its part to give back to the community, hosting the second Give Kids a Smile Day on Friday. The event provided about 120 children from the Durham area with free dental care and education. The kids got checkups from volunteers from the dental school and also received lessons about healthy eating and proper dental hygiene. Organizers estimate that dental faculty members and students provided $11,000 worth of care during the event. At the close, children were even greeted by a visit with the Tooth Fairy.
Shifting gears now, candidate David Marsh won't be moving forward in the SBP elections. Catherine Walker and Houston Summers will compete next week in a runoff. Carolina Week covered the results live last night. Our Sarah Rutherford has a behind-the-scenes look at SBP election night 2015.
You've probably seen Houston Summers, David Marsh, and Catherine Walker debating, campaigning, and even dancing for votes. But Tuesday night, the SBP candidates took on a more serious tone. The candidates and their campaign teams sat on pins and needles waiting for the results. Outgoing SBP Andrew Powell reflected on his year as president.
So it's been a lot of work, a lot of late nights, but as I said, I've got a great team around me.
Current senior class president Sasha Seymour was ready to pass the torch. He'll have to wait. There was no clear winner named for senior class officers or SBP. Instead, there will be a runoff between Walker and Summers next week, Tuesday. Don't take Summers' look of relief for granted. He says he has a big challenge ahead of him.
I think it's convincing those individuals that didn't vote and convincing others that might have voted in a candidate that we can actually stand and be strong supporters for their voice.
Walker, well, she's overwhelmed by emotion.
I'm incredibly excited and incredibly humbled. It is students who have gotten me here thus far, and I am just humbled by them believing in me to be a representative for them.
So it's student government elections round 2 next Tuesday. In Chapel Hill, I'm Sarah Rutherford reporting.
Carolina Week will cover the runoff live Tuesday night starting at 9.
TEDx UNC is coming off the heels of another successful year. The 4th annual conference took place Saturday and featured 17 speakers and performers and an interactive breakout session. The theme this year, Assembly Required, encouraged students to take the resources they have at UNC and create something that matters. Check out what this student created, a 3D printer. Pretty cool stuff, huh? Destruction of indigenous lands is a growing global issue, and one man is on a mission to reverse this trend. People crowded into a local cafe this weekend to hear Godi Godar perform on his African balafone. Look here, it's made with Bolondo wood, gourds, and antelope hide. Godar performs to fundraise for his nonprofit, Go Conscious Earth. Its mission is to conserve indigenous communities around the globe.
Tar Heel Bikes hopes to expand its bike share program by raising student fees this next school year. The program currently has 30 bikes in rotation, but organizers hope to grow the program to 100 new bikes. They hope to do this through a $3 increase in transit student fees per semester. Tar Heel Bikes is currently waiting for approval from the Student Fee Advisory Committee, which will be decided in August.
You can't check in at Rams Dining Hall without receiving a warm welcome from the friendly face known as Miss Deborah. That's why, after hearing of her recent car trouble, 2 students have decided to give back. Senior Caitlin Ball and sophomore Sarah Adams are raising awareness and money through their Fund Miss Deborah's Car and Home campaign. Within just 54 hours, they not only met, but surpassed their target goal, with the total currently sitting at more than $5,000. Ball and Adams held a card signing to thank Miss Deborah and presented her with the card and check at a small celebration earlier this afternoon. The sky's full of Carolina blue today with a bit of wind and temperatures in the high 40s.
In a few days, we'll consider that warm. Drew Day has your forecast next.
Welcome back to Carolina Week. I'm Drew Day. Thanks for staying with us. The current temperature outside here in Chapel Hill is currently 52 degrees. The dew point is at 30, and winds right now are calm here in Chapel Hill, but that will be changing tomorrow as winds will be gusting 30 to 40 miles per hour, which we'll talk about in just a second. First off, we have plenty of sunshine across the area today, so we're not only dry here at the surface, but we're dry in the upper levels of the atmosphere as well. There's just not enough moisture to produce any cloud cover upstairs, if you will. So that's why we have plenty of sunshine today. Just a little bit of cloud cover along the coast earlier this morning, but that's since moved mostly offshore. And around the rest of the country, we have an area of low pressure centered up to the north with a cold front stretching down through the central portions of the United States. That will be sweeping through the area throughout the day tomorrow, and behind that front, much colder temperatures. We can expect highs to be in the 30s here in the coming days. Now, temperatures over the area again today were not that bad. Temperatures were in the 50s, but all this air in the northern part of the United States will be seeping into North Carolina, and we'll talk about that here right now. This is a look at the sea level pressure. This can help you determine not only winds, where there's a high gradient of pressure, that means the winds will be very strong. So the tighter these lines are packed like here, that means stronger winds. Where they're over the North Carolina here with just one little line zigzagging through the state, that means winds are quite light. It can also help you pick out some of the surface fronts. So as we head throughout the overnight period and into tomorrow morning, we will have just light winds across the state with just one little line you can see here nearby North Carolina. But as we head into the afternoon, those lines you see here start to increase, which means in the afternoon hours, the winds will start to pick up. They'll be sustained 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting 30 to 40. So you'll definitely need to bundle up out there tomorrow afternoon. It will be chilly. This area of low pressure centered off the northeast is the culprit for that. As you can see where these lines originate from, they start up in Canada and then they come right down into North Carolina. So this is cold air moving right into the state. So temperatures will be in the 30s, and then we'll start to moderate just a little bit throughout the day on Saturday, and then another cold shot will move in for Sunday. Overnight tonight, temperatures will be right around freezing with clear skies and calm winds, but they'll be picking up as we head into the afternoon. By lunchtime, temperatures will be in the upper 40s, right around 29 by 8 p.m. And the 5-day forecast now, temperatures will be in the 50s tomorrow, but cold on Friday with a high of only 36, 50 on Saturday, but then another round of cold air moves in for Sunday with a high of only 28.
So it sounds like we're going to have to bundle up.
Yes, you will need that jacket here the next few days.
All right. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The defensive staff for Carolina football has been changing.
Next up on sports, who's behind the firings? It might not be who many have been thinking it is.
Welcome back to Carolina Week. I'm Luis Fernandez with sports. Earlier this week, UNC lost an incredible person. Coach Dean Smith passed away late Saturday night. He was 83 years old. He left a legacy of excellence, compassion, and courage. We pay tribute to the man who defined the Carolina way.
His impact is everywhere, and even when you hang out with the former players that come back in the summertime, they always tell stories about him, and you can just tell how much he meant to this place.
In my mind, I'm going to Carolina. Can't you see the sunshine?
Legend. I don't use that word very often because I don't think you can really know someone's a legend until they leave an incredible impact and you realize it years later.
Yes, I'm going to Carolina in my mind.
But his successes go far beyond X's and O's.
And that's why there's so many people that have such a reverence for him, because it was never about Coach Smith. It was always about someone else.
Till I die.
a lot of the things that I do will be from him. That's a pretty good legacy. It really is.
The family is having a private church service tomorrow. The big memorial will be February 22nd in the Dean Smith Center. Moving on now to Carolina football. Tate Frazier joins us now. Tate, there's been some changes along the coaching staff, and the reasons behind those have been a little bit sketchy.
Yeah, Lewis, Carolina football is definitely struggling a bit. We've had 3 coaches being dismissed since the end of the 2014 season. And first, let's talk about Dan Dish. The defensive backs have been relying on Dan Dish to pick them up for the past 3 seasons, but not anymore. Dish is the 3rd defensive coach, as I discussed earlier, to leave Larry Fedora's staff this in the offseason. When a reporter questioned new defensive coordinator Gene Chizik on signing day about retaining Chizik, here's what Chizik had to say about that.
Right now, just everything, I think we're evaluating everything from top to bottom. Again, I haven't even been here long enough to move into a place yet, so.
It was a quick evaluation. Dish, according to team sources, attended the UNC signing day party on Wednesday, February 4th. According to a report on InsideCarolina.com, Dish was informed, Thursday morning, February 5th, that he would be relieved of his duties at UNC. But why now? Dish was the primary recruiter for highly touted players in the 2015 recruiting class. One in particular, defensive back Mike Hughes, who didn't commit until signing day. But it was widely believed that Chizik made the call to fire Dish because Chizik reportedly has a clause in his contract giving him complete control over defensive staffing. But a source close to the situation, who I trust completely, confirms the decision was solely Fedora's. And Lewis, that's a big deal, and you know, it's a tough business in college football. Back to you.
The whole recruiting process, Tate, is really cutthroat. Tate Frazier, football analyst, thanks so much. You know, guys, even with all of the other sports going on in the Carolina world, it's tough to, not think about Dean Smith and his passing.
You know, he had such a large and profound impact, not only on the Carolina community, but on the entire face of college basketball. I know that we are going to be mourning for a very long time.
It's definitely been a tough one. Thank you, Lewis. A legend of local TV news is calling it quits, but not because he wants to.
The moving story of this proud Tar Heels last day on the air when Carolina Week continues.
As you might expect, many of us at Carolina Week aspire to go into TV news. So we look for inspiration from those currently in the business. One shining light in local TV is longtime WTVD anchor Larry Stogner, a Tar Heel alum who is retiring after learning he has ALS.
It's the end of an era.
My career in broadcast journalism is coming to an end.
That was 40 years in the making.
As it turns out, I have ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease.
Larry Stogner covered everything from presidential races to the fall of Saigon, but his roots are at UNC.
I really thought I wanted to be a pharmacist. My heart was not in it, so I lost interest, dropped out of school, joined the Air Force.
Where he spent 4 years, then returned to Carolina with a different plan in mind.
Someone in the service told me they thought that I would be a good broadcaster. And that little germ stayed with me.
And it's a good thing, because he passed it on to everyone he's touched.
I hope to be like him as a journalist.
Andrea Blanford is a reporter at ABC 11 and a Tar Heel herself, and says working with Stogner has taught her about the profession.
He's always in control, and that's what you need when you're looking for someone who's credible, who's going to give you the news as it really happens.
And so much more.
He's touched so many people because he's been here for so many years, and it won't be the same without him, but we're going to try.
And for Fred Shropshire, another Tar Heel and colleague.
And the one thing about Larry Stogner is throughout his entire career, he's always been up front, on the lines, telling stories.
An anchorman, a true anchorman. He was the first anchorman I'd ever met, really.
So Larry, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
For giving us 40 amazing years.
To all of you, I say one last time, thanks for the company and goodbye.
Wow, Jacqueline, it's been a tough week in Chapel Hill. First Dean Smith, then Larry Stogner, and now the shootings. How do you think the community can even begin to handle all of this?
You know, I think first off, we need to lean on each other as a community. I believe that we're stronger together and we need each other now more than ever.
I couldn't agree more. It's definitely been a tough one. And a reminder, there's a vigil for the students involved in the shooting tonight at 6 and then again at 6:30.
Thank you for staying with us. That does it for this edition of Carolina Week.
Good night.